Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Suno Tonight with Saadia Afzaal. We are back with yet another episode of series Islam and the Modern World. Today, Muslims are divided on the basis of religious grounds, which has fueled the resurgence of conflicts, not only in Middle East, but other parts of the Muslim world as well. In the recent decades, starting from early 80s, we saw Iran-Iraq war was fought for 8 years on religious divide, which left thousands dead and huge damage to infrastructure. As per independent media sources, during this 8-year war, by April 1988, total casualties were estimated at between 150,000 to 340,000 Iraqis and 450,000 to 730,000 Iranians. This 8-year war impacted both nations for many years to come. Moving ahead, in 2003, we saw how the US, along with other Western nations, invaded Iraq and toppled the government of Saddam Hussein. And after the change of regime, there was a civil war on the basis of religious divide. And in a time frame of 10 years, more than 1 million people had died. Similarly, after 9/11, US-NATO alliance raided Afghanistan and left after 20 years, causing deaths of thousands of civilians and loss of billions of dollars. But that does not stop here. In the last 20 years, either it's Arab Spring or some other war, regime changes happened in Muslim world, including Libya, Egypt, Tunisia, and Yemen, with millions of deaths and complete structure collapse. Some Muslim nations, either Lebanon, Syria, or Pakistan, also remained parts of different wars and insurgencies. And even today, security and economic conditions are poor, and living in these countries is difficult. According to a recent research, the number of Muslims who died in the conflicts and wars in the last 25 years has reached 12.5 million. This amounts to the losses happened in world wars. These wars, conflicts, and divisions left Muslim nations desperate and struggling for their basic needs of life. In real terms, the Muslim world has not really seen progress in its true sense. Only wars, illiteracy, and poverty are the trademarks of most of the nations. On the other hand, if we look at the other parts of the world, either Europe, China, India, or Singapore, we find out that all the nations have rapidly changed their economic outlook and made rapid progress in science, economy, and human welfare. In the recent Muslim history, in subcontinent, we can consider Allama Muhammad Iqbal as the last thinker, whereas in Muslim history, Ibn Khaldun, a 14th century Tunisian Arab thinker, is regarded as the last thinker we created. Today, it looks like that the Muslim world is back to dogmatic age. In the last 50 years, the Muslim world remained suppressed, ignored the teachings of Islam, whereas Western powers adopted the policy of divide and rule, also known as the divide and conquer strategy. British colonialism first adopted this policy in Indian subcontinent, divided us on religions and ethnicities, and allowed London to keep their firm control on Indian Muslims. Not only in India, the British adopted the same policy after the fall of Ottoman Empire. First divided the empire into pieces and then created different ethnicities. This divide still exists among us after 100 years. In the last century, we remained occupied with wars and conflicts. Modern education in science and technology was never our priority. The Muslim nations blessed with resources of oil spent their wealth for their personal satisfaction. Society's growth was never the priority. Today's conflict in the Middle East, starting from Gaza, is our failure. We, as Ummah, have failed Palestine and the people of Palestine. In the last 10 months, Palestinians were slaughtered and innocent children were killed, but we kept mum. Our silence is our society's overall failure. No one stands with moral values of Islam. Most of the rulers in Islamic world either support a Zionist state Israel or are just afraid of them. West divided us and conquered us. We need to grow, otherwise West and powers of the evil will keep conquering us. This is going to be our topic of discussion today, and to discuss this, we have in our studio Dr. Aftab Ahmed, HOD Comparative Religions, Islamic University, joining us in our Islamabad studio. Thank you very much, Dr. Aftab Ahmed. With you, we have Dr. Sajid Iqbal Khattak, who is the Assistant Professor, International Relations Department, NAML. Thank you very much, Dr. Sajid, for joining us. And joining us from Lahore studio is Mr. Sayyid Fahad Kazmi, who is a research scholar and also doing his PhD in Islamic theology. Thank you very much, Mr. Kazmi, for joining us. And as always, we have our audience, which is based off university students, and they will also be given an opportunity to ask questions. I'll start with you, Dr. Aftab. Let's talk about the historical context first. Could you please provide us an overview of how, historically, when we look at this West's divide and rule policy has impacted Muslim nations, and particularly if we talk about Middle East or South Asia?
Bismillahir-Rahmanir-Rahim. In the intro, you have given a very comprehensive introduction about divide and rule policy. I think as you mentioned, that it was started by Britishers, and they ruled on India. They divided the Muslim community, they divided other ethnic groups in India, and they ruled here for 200 years.
Absolutely.
So this is one reason. Here my point is that keeping in view all these things, what was the strategy of Muslims? Because there are 57 countries.
Absolutely.
Education is there. They are living in the 21st century, and blaming other is not important. It is important that what we are doing for the welfare of our communities, for our countries. So there is the need of a united ummah. The concept of ummah is missing. Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam has mentioned in his teachings that you are like one body. If you feel pain in any organ of your body, the whole Muslims have to feel that. Unfortunately, now we are living in the Muslims, now there are the nation states. So nation states, they think just for their own country. They don't think about the problems and issues and challenges of other people. So this is one thing I would like to draw the attention of people, that we have to think that we are Muslim, and that is the basic uniting point for all of us.
So there is no whole of the ummah approach anymore.
Yes. So this is very important. When we look at another aspect, the aspect is we don't have any Muslim international media. On media, Muslims are losing many things. So in this regard, I would like to say why we don't have a Muslim media through which we can propagate the teachings of Islam, we can highlight the problems and challenges of our nation and of the Muslim. This is one point. Secondly, as you mentioned that many invasions were done by America, and other things are also happening throughout the world. So where is the Muslim leadership? Why don't they think about it? Why these problems are coming? The Palestine issue is a great challenge not only for Muslims, it is the matter of the humanity. And on humanitarian grounds, there is the need to raise our voice, not only from OIC, but from other Arab League platform and other platforms of the Muslim Ummah also. This is very important that they have to play this role.
Right, and I think we all have forgotten that we will be answerable to Allah when it comes to Palestine especially. We will all have to answer that. Dr. Khattak, moving on to you, as Dr. Aftab mentioned, so would I be wrong to say that we actually, as when I say we as in Muslim countries, have actually let this happen to us? We know that West is doing this. We know this is their tactic. We know this is their strategy. But we have rather facilitated the effectiveness of this divide and rule strategy.
Well, I would refer to a historical context of this divide and rule. You mentioned that this divide and rule policy was started by the Britishers against the Muslims, particularly in India. I would say that this divide and rule policy is quite old. It was there even when Islam was in its early ages. If we look into the 80 Years' War among the Europeans, that was again, one of the tool of the exploitation was divide and rule. They had divided the Christians among Protestants and Catholics. And so this is one of the tools of the, you can say, the powerful states to exploit in terms of resources and other things. And the broader concept of this divide and rule is imperialism. Historically, it was physical imperialism where a world power would use to intervene and control the smaller countries or the weaker countries. But now we are living in an age of neo-imperialism. In neo-imperialism, the powerful states, they create a structure, and in that structure, the smaller states, which unfortunately are the weaker states, unfortunately, mostly are the Islamic world, they are embedded in a structure in a way that they cannot make decisions independently because they have structural dependencies. Now you referred to, that why the Muslim states are not deciding something or doing something, or we know that the West is doing this with us but we are not doing it. I would refer to you can say the concept in international relations which says that you can say the international system is anarchic, and in this international anarchic system you can say the one who has the power and who has the resources, he basically that particular entity is going to control the overall you can
might
say
is right.
Yes, might is right. So if we look into the case of the Muslim states, let's take the example of Pakistan. Pakistan is structurally dependent on the West. We are, you can say, stuck in IMF programs. Even our military equipment is totally you can say coming from the West. We cannot operate it without their well. If we take the example of Saudi Arabia, their missile defense system and their military equipment is coming from the US. They cannot operate it without the you can say the permission of the United States. They can control it. If we take the example of Turkey, it is a member of NATO you can say organization, and moreover Turkey has economic dependency on the West. So to certain extent, almost every Muslim country is, you can say, structurally dependent on the West in a way, because we are, it's a kind of colonial, you can say, world system where one power is the hegemon and the rest of the countries are its colonies. So that is the reason why Muslim countries are fearful, and they have this threat that if we respond to the atrocities of Israel or to the unjust policies of the West,
on them in one way or
they
the
would
other.
not be able to, you can say, absorb the retaliatory measures from the West or from the Israel.
Moving on to Lahore, Mr. Kazmi, I would like to ask you this one thing. Now, from this discussion here in our studio, we have established at least one fact that yes, West has been doing this. We all know, given the historical perspective, they have been doing this for decades. They still do it. We are aware of that. But then a bigger question arises, and that is, why are we then so vulnerable to all this? Why we as Muslim nations are so susceptible to fall for all these tactics of Western powers?
Thanks a lot, Saadia. This is, I think, a very, very important question that you are raising here. And I am actually glad that in Pakistan, in mainstream media, we are having such kind of a meaningful discourse. And I think this is for the very first time that we are able to link Islam with the important issues that we face in our modern day-to-day context. Up front, I would want to say that all of us agree that instead of blaming others, instead of having this victim mentality, we need to come out of this victim mentality. This victim mindset has cost us, and basically it is absolutely counterproductive. We need to come out of this victim mindset. We need to take the bull by the horns, and we have to take up the responsibility. We can have all these big macro conversations vis-a-vis international relations, so on and so forth. But divide and rule policy, they might be employing it, they might be resorting it, but that's not an excuse for us as Muslim Ummah. So first up, I would want to urge all the Muslims at a micro level and at a macro level, we need to come out of this victim mentality that we use as an excuse. I would want to raise three points here, three basic points here. You talk about Saudi Arabia and Qatar and Muslim states, 57 Muslim states. What's the root cause of this problem? The problem is that we have absolutely no ability whatsoever to correctly identify and define Islam. We think that Islam is a set of rituals. I say my prayers 5 times a day, I fast for a month, I go to Hajj once in my lifetime and do some charity and I'm a Muslim. That's a very reductionist approach. Islam has a governance aspect, it has a public policy aspect, it has an economics aspect, international aspect. It calls for implementation, it calls for execution. And we as Muslims, we have failed big time. We have failed to realize that Islam is not a set of rituals, it's an ideology that calls for implementation come what may. When it comes to worldly rewards, at times, we may have to fight a Badr, we may have to fight an Uhud, we may have to fight a Khaybar in dire circumstances. But we'll leave the rewards to Almighty Allah because it's a spiritual ideology at the end of the day. And it's an implementation, it calls for implementation of an order. When Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he was challenging the false deities of Makkans, he was also challenging the false order, the social order of that era. But sadly, we as 57 countries, we have failed to realize the importance of implementation. So ritualistically, we are Muslims. We say our prayers 5 times a day, we fast once a month, and that's it, and we think that we are good Muslims. But when it comes to economy, when it comes to politics, when it comes to judiciary, bureaucracy, we are living secular lives. You and me, we are perfect examples of this. That at the end of the day, Pakistani society, Turkish society, or name any other country, we basically are living a secular existence. We are Muslims in name, we are ritualistic Muslims, but our societies are as secular as any other Western society. We need to change that.
Started the discussion that we have to stop being victims all the time. We are in this typical victim mindset. We need to get out of it. On this note, we are going for a break, and when we come back from the break, we'll open the floor for the questions from the audience right after the short break. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Suno Tonight with Saadia Afzaal. We are now going to take questions from the audience. We have students from different universities. First question. Yes, please.
My name is Majid Ali and I'm the student of BS English at Namal Islamabad. The panelist has linked our problems with mostly that we are not good Muslims, so that's why we are facing problems on the world stage. So I think that's not the case. And further, we also always blame foreign powers that they have destroyed our Muslim culture and they have killed millions of Muslims. So if we keep the case of Palestine on hold for a time being, and particularly focus on the case of Pakistan and Afghanistan, so we have created Taliban to kill fellow Muslims in Afghanistan, and we have facilitated the American hegemony on the region. So don't you think that Pakistan need de-Ziaization? That how much steps we have taken to push back the policies made in this era? Thank you.
All right, Dr. Aftab, would you like to respond to this?
Bismillahir-Rahmanir-Rahim. I think this is a very important thing we have to keep in our mind, that Muslim, when we say that we are Muslim does not mean to offer prayer, to observe fasting in the month of Ramadan and all that. We must keep before us the life of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, how he led his life and how he played a significant role. There was a disruption in the society. There were many challenges to the society at that time. So he came as a reformer. So being a reformer, and as you also mentioned in your introduction, that every one of us is accountable not only before the world but before Allah Almighty. So if we keep this sense of responsibility that we are sent, and it is the worldview of a Muslim and Islam also, that we are accountable before God, we are sent here for a specific purpose, we have to do some good things here. Because Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, and it is mentioned in the Quran, فَقَدْ لَبِسْتُ فِيكُمْ عُمُرًا مِّن قَبْلِهِ أَفَلَا تَعْقِلُونَ. People, I have spent 40 years of my life among you, and my character was an ideal character. I played a role for the reformation of the society. I played a role for the reconciliation of different ethnic groups. I played a role as a good character. He played a role for the promotion of education. He played a role for the promotion of peace, harmony, and safety and security of the people. So this is why, being a Muslim, so far as Pakistan is concerned, which was made on the name of Islam, so the first and topmost priority of Pakistan should be to create a peaceful atmosphere, not only in Pakistan but throughout the world. So this was the main duty where we have to play. So far as Afghanistan...
But I think judging from the facial expression of my brother here who asked this question, he doesn't seem to agree with you or Mr. Kazmi. He still believes we are very good Muslims. Go on, please.
So I say that everyone has the right to disagree or agree. So this is an open discussion. So I would like to say that we have to play a role. We have to understand the world politics. We have to see our position where we are, what are our weaknesses and what are our strengths. If we note our strengths and weaknesses, and then we can chalk out a strategy to come out of this situation. So that is why, so far as Pakistan is concerned, we need rest in the society. We have to provide the basic needs to the people. And here the role is visionary leadership is the need of the time, not only in Pakistan but throughout the Muslim countries. If we have a visionary Muslim leadership, they can point out and they can identify the deficiencies and the problems facing by the Muslim Ummah. Right. This is very important thing. And then they can use the platform of OIC, they can sit together, they can make a plan. We are not going to make conspiracies against the West or against any country. We have to work for the prosperity of ourselves. So that is why they all have to sit together. They have to make a strategy to educate the masses among the Muslim countries. They have to go in the field of science and technology.
Absolutely.
They have to play a role in media.
Let's take another question for Dr. Khattak. Go on.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Wasim Awaz, a student of BS English in Nizam-e-Hukoomat. As we discussed about the Western policies and divide and rules and their impact on Muslim countries. So first of all, I want to talk about our homeland. As we see, our Prime Minister is Muslim, President of Pakistan is Muslim, but still Pakistan state policies divide us within state. If I take, there are many examples, there are many extremist organizations which are working within Pakistan. First of all, if I mention about my area, district Upper Kurumpara Chinar, where state is completely silenced. So do you think, sir, Pakistan state should think about their policies and should change their strategies? Because when we want to fight with other Western states, so first of all, we should united within states. Then we will fight with them. Thank you, sir.
So you said that forget about that policy of West of divide and rule. What about divisions within our country, Dr. Khattak?
I would agree with his argument that I had already mentioned that there is a divide and rule within our state as well. Even after post-independence time, we have not, you can say, get rid of the policies that the Britishers had left in this region. And as far as this Prime Minister being Muslim or our state being an Islamic state, I would say that not just Islam, even if we study Christianity, if we study Judaism, almost all religions, you can say there is no contradiction on, you can say, ensuring peace, human dignity, human rights. All religions throughout the world, you can say, focuses or emphasizes on this. human nature inherently, or you can say, is always self-centric and is power-hungry and is selfish. The role of the religion in humans' lives is that once a person starts thinking rationally, he or she should be able to come out of this selfish behavior and become cooperative and become, you can say, peaceful towards the world. This is what is the main test of religions, divine religions in this world. All of other things, for example, practicing Islam or practicing Christianity or some other things, I think the main philosophical basis of religions in this world is that human nature is nasty, selfish, brutal. But once you become, you can say, a rational actor, you start thinking rationally, you have to come out of this nature and you have to nurture yourself all the peaceful things which we can say which can bring peace in the world. And with respect to his point on that, how can Pakistani state be attentive towards the divide and rule policies within, I think there is a need of decolonization of the human of the minds of Pakistanis. We have to you can say, decolonize ourselves ideologically, mentally, to come out of this you can say notion that we cannot do good without the British policies or the British system. Unfortunately, in our country, the legal framework is still the one which was given by the Britishers back in the 19th century. We still have laws of 1860s. So this is something I think we should be looking into. We should have indigenous legislation. We should have you can say our own rules and regulations for our people. And you know, divide and rule policy is not possible if there are lacunas or if there are fault lines within.
Yeah,
you know, they always play on the fault lines. So
yeah.
you know, the fault lines can only be addressed if there is a, you can say, an effective local governance system.
Let me have another question for Mr. Fahad Kazmi. Go on, please.
Assalamu alaikum, sir. This is Muhammad Ishaq, student of BS Information Engineering Technology from National Skill University, Islamabad. Sir, my question that what are the psychological barriers that prevent a Muslim leader from taking decisive action on the issue of Palestine?
Okay, what are those barriers, Mr. Kazmi?
This is a classic case of colonization. The consequence of colonization is that inherently we have developed a lot of individuals that think that they are inferior to the Western powers. And whatever comes from the West, that's the best solution, that's the best strategy. So our leadership collectively inherently is not brave, is not daring. And as the gentleman was rightly pointing out, that we need to cultivate indigenous solutions to our problems. We are still stuck with the British mindset when it comes to Pakistan or when it comes to certain colonies which were British colonies. So when it comes to the psychological barrier, we need to come out of this slavish mentality and we need to decide according to our own needs, according to our own circumstances. Why we have not been able to do much vis-a-vis Palestine? Why South Africa, a distant player, is able to do something? Because South African nation is free. It's a non-Muslim country, but it's a free country mentally. They are free. They follow the teachings of their founding father, Nelson Mandela. And Nelson Mandela was against apartheid and he stood for equality and he stood for freedom. And he changed the social fiber of South Africans. But in Pakistan or in other Muslim states, we have not been able to achieve that. We have not been able to accomplish that. Whenever we see the British or the Americans, there is this inherent subservience. We feel awed by those elements. So we need to cultivate such brave leaders who are able to see eye to eye and who are able to utter Islamic stance or Muslim stance in a very proud manner.
So that's the biggest and strongest barrier, lack of bravery. Welcome back to Suno Tonight with Saadia Afzaal. I have time for 2 more questions. Yes.
Assalamu alaikum. Myself Zohaib and I am student of Beria School of Professional Psychology. My question is that we actually stick to our past and cannot move towards our future. And that's our problem, why we are not growing as a society or as a civil.
We're not growing as a society. Okay.
And my question is that why we are sticking to our past, why we don't move in our future, why we don't think about it.
Right. Yeah, sure. Go on.
So it's Shakespeare used to say past is the prologue. So when it comes to past sets future direction. Past is important, and our past is actually a glorious past. It's like an ideal. When I talk about Umar bin al-Khattab raziyallahu ta'ala anhu, who's acknowledged universally as one of the best leaders, as one of the best statesmen the world has ever witnessed, I present that past so I can follow in his footsteps and attain something in future. So when I have, as human beings, it's my need to have role models, right?
True.
I don't live in isolation. We as humans, we don't live in isolations. We need father figures, we need role models, we need stories, we need narratives. That's what happens the world over. So these characters are the lighthouses.
True.
How can I ignore them? I cannot,
so
and I should not.
You should not, right? But we, again, unfortunately, we lost that glory, that decline of Islamic golden age. And obviously, this mess is all created by our own selves. And we need to apply correction. We need to rectify this. And for that, you say, always remember your past. One last question, maybe. She wanted to ask a question. Okay, both of you. I'll take two questions now.
My name is Abdullah Kiani from Media and Communication Study Department, Namal. Ma'am, I have a question that we are blaming West. You don't think it's very easy to blame others instead of our own thing? In Islam, the justice is very important. The Prophet said if there is no justice, the society will be destroyed. I have a question to you. Are you satisfied with the judicial system of Pakistan?
Okay, Dr. Aftab.
This is a very important thing we have to keep in our mind. First of all, so far as the judicial system of Pakistan is concerned, I am very hopeful, and it has many good qualities. Every judicial system has problem, and those problems are coming from our socio-economic conditions, why we are facing those things. So this is very important that we work, and we have to give confidence to our judiciary that we trust you, and you have to take decisions. If the people are standing with the judiciary system, then inshallah our judicial system will deliver, and our judicial system has delivered. Recent examples of judiciary decisions are before you. And not only this, when you look at Hamudur Rahman Commission report, that was written by the judges.
One last question.
Assalamu alaikum. My question basically revolves around the education sector, because we've talked about all the problems and we've talked about different solutions. But since education is the one thing which actually helps the masses grow out of their mentalities, what is the problem the education sector of Pakistan is constantly facing, that we're either stuck between the secular group or like the left wing, or the extremist group or the right wing? If the governmental education system tries to bring religion into it, we rush and claim it as conservative, right? It's been happening in the past as well. If we try to find another option, we constantly go for Oxford and Cambridge and these systems. Where does the education system of Pakistan bring a balance, and we identify Islam as the complete code, where we don't have to rush to other education systems rather than stick to Islamic values? What is our weakness? Where are we going wrong that we are unable to label Islam as something which isn't fundamentalist or conservative, but a complete code which isn't like down market or conservative or anything?
So we just look at two extremes.
Yeah,
that's
like
why
where
there is
is
more
the balance
confusion.
between modernism, secularism,
Brilliant
and
question.
Islam?
Brilliant question. Dr. Khattak, would you like to respond?
Yes, I think it's again a matter of divide and rule. Our education system is
divide and
again,
rule,
yeah,
again.
it's a divide and rule. We have multiple education, you can say, systems in our country. Why don't we have, a common education system? Why don't we have, you know, a single education policy which can last and is not affected by the change of the government? If we look into our educational policies from 1947, with every change of government, we have a new education policy in our country. And this shows that we are not clear about it. And this, again, I would refer that we need indigenous educational policies rather than copying the Western education system or copying the, you can say, the purely traditional conservative Islamic education system, or copying in between or doing something in between. We should have, you know, if some school system is doing good, why don't you just, you can say, copy the same format, the same standards, and then implement it throughout the country.
Right. Thank you very much, Sayyid Fahmi, Dr. Sajid Iqbal Khattak, and Dr. Aftab Ahmed for joining me on the show today. That's all for tonight. I'll see you tomorrow, inshallah. Thank you for joining us.